Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us here at X Church for our lab on parenting through the phases. No matter how you found yourself finding these videos, whether it was through our Circle ministry or just abroad, man, we're so glad that you joined us here for this. If you're checking out a parenting video, odds are that you probably haven't nailed down and perfected parenting. None of us have, but let me just encourage you by saying one thing. God chose you to be the parents of your kids. You have it inside of you to fix whatever problem, whatever solution you're looking for. God has equipped you with it. I truly believe that. So today, as we walk through the very first video, I really just want to bring something to light that every one of us know, but sometimes we just tend to forget about it. We also have a live studio audience in front of us today, which is really cool for everybody just to be a part of it. And we have so many different parents that are here today. And maybe people that aren't parents yet, but they have parents, which is really cool. So they have the opportunity to know the ultimate bottom line, that parenting is hard. And one phase, I just want to say this to everybody, one phrase that I hate is the phase phrase. It is, hey, this is just a phase. You're going to get past it. You're going to remember this. You're going to laugh about this one day, right? I absolutely hate that, because every phase of life, to be perfectly honest, is a phase. It's a time. It is a season that you can learn something. It's not just to endure. It's not just to hopefully your kids get better, or hopefully they grow out of a temper. Hopefully they grow out of an attitude. Hopefully they grow out of whatever it might be. A phase is simply a time that we have to instill in our kids to grow. And let's be honest, again, with all of the different parents that we have in the room, I'm blessed enough to have what I call the ultimate blended family. Blended families, of course, there's many books on this and how to do that, but my wife and I are blessed enough to have literally the ultimate blended family. I have a 21-year-old son who was adopted. I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, and then I have a 9-year-old biological daughter. Now, granted, I don't talk to any of them like they're an adopted, a step, or a biological. They're just my kids. And my wife looks at it the same way, and I think that that's really key and important to what that looks like. But one thing that I can say through all of the different phases of parents and how old your kids might be or how old they're not is those phases only last for a certain amount of time. So the one thing that I want to share with you today, the bottom line of our very first week that we're digging in, is the countdown has begun. The countdown has begun on everything, in life, in lessons, in opportunities, in all of these things. And one thing that I want to share with you, kind of the key course monument that we're going to be talking about through parenting through the phases, is this jar right here. Inside this jar, we have 936 marbles. Does anybody know the significance of 936 by chance?
Yeah, it's from birthday till 18.
Yeah. So basically 936, from the time that they are born until the time that they graduate, you have roughly 936 weeks to instill something in your child. And to be honest with you, if you look at any kind of time frame, there's always an expiration, there's always a start, there's always everything in between. But 936 is the frame of reference that we're going to be talking about through parenting through the phases. So hopefully that leans up a little bit, that gives you a little bit of breath in your lungs where you don't have to worry about the stress factor of teaching your kids something that might be so important to you right now, and you need to teach it to them in a moment's notice so that tomorrow they understand it. Let's be honest, time frames are very important in our lives. If there's something that we can teach our kid, usually it happens over time. So if we look at 936, there's got to be a reason why God created time. I wrote down just a couple things that I wanted to share with you, because a lot of life lessons don't happen momentarily. They don't just all of a sudden come up and then they're gone and you learn your lesson and you never have to worry about that again. Sometimes that's why some of the parents that are in this room right now are even here, because they have a great story to share with people. They have a great bank of wisdom to be able to share with so many parents to go, hey, I walked through this before. Be careful. Here's a yield sign. Pay attention to this curve. It's going to get a little bit slippery. There's going to be some things that you just feel like you're completely out of control. Every parent has felt that way. So one thing that I wrote down, just for a sense of time. In the Bible, we look at time, and God was very, very specific about these things. Number one, he gave Abraham a son. Abraham waited so long. It was a promise. Oh, God, because you promised that it needs to happen now. There was some patience that was instilled in there that honestly was a life lesson. He let Joseph sit in jail. Let's be honest, if you're Joseph and you walk through what that looks like, to sit in jail for years and years and think that God forgot about you, he was developing something in him that changed forever. He sent Moses to deliver a nation. He left the nation wander in the desert for 40 years. Again, all of these things have time behind it, and I would say some of the most valuable lessons that we learn in our life happen over time. So if you're very specific on the time that you have left, let's be honest, you can get very intentional about the time that you have right now. You know, if you just gave birth to somebody last week, right, your little baby that's so precious and crying and keeping you up at night and you're stressed out and all these things, congratulations, you have 936 of these left. But let's be real, maybe your kid's 10 or maybe your kid's 12. And you're hearing this and you're like, oh my goodness, the jar looks more like this than it does the big jar. So how in the world can we do that? Well, let's be honest. I love sports, right? I love to watch sports. And I just want to give a sports analogy for this, football, right? If you see when football starts, there is 4 quarters, there's a halftime, there's commercial breaks, there's people running out of bounds to stop the clock. There's so many things that have to do with time. But if we just look from a 30,000-foot view on football, there are so many intentional things that happen with time. And even more importantly, with time, when you realize how much time you have left. Again, the 4th quarter of a football game. It seems like that takes an hour when the rest of the game took 45 minutes is what it feels like. That's when all the timeouts are being used. That's when they're being very strategic about teaching lessons. That's when they're trying to get their players and their team to understand what's going on. They're trying to take every second of that clock and make it as valuable as they possibly can. So why in the world would that change for our kids? Maybe you're here today and the jar's a little bit slim on how many weeks you have left. Be intentional about the time that you have left, and I absolutely believe that God will bless that. So there's no doubt about it that the time clock has started. What are you going to do a little bit different to be intentional about what that looks like in your walk with your kid? There's lessons, there's PDFs that are going to be with this video that I really want to encourage you to do as homework, to make sure that you're talking to your spouse or your kids very intentionally about this. Because again, if you realize how much time you have left, you get very intentional about the time that you have now.